Affairs Minister Melanie Joly is speaking right now on the situation in the Middle East. Let's listen.
White House earlier today. There is a need for more fuel, food, and water in Gaza, and the only organization truly capable of doing that on the ground in Gaza is the UN, specifically UNRWA. I've had several meetings with the president of UNRWA when I was in Amman, Jordan. We increased our funding to UNRWA as well. The International Development Minister announced that recently. And today at the UN in New York, we are reiterating our support for UNRWA. Lastly, when I was in Japan, I confirmed that 75 Canadians have been able to get out of Gaza recently. Of course, today there will be another evacuation of Canadians out of Gaza. Later today, I will be able to confirm the final numbers of the number of Canadians who were able to get out. Other Canadians are scheduled to be evacuated tomorrow. Of course, we will continue to press all parties to allow the evacuation of Canadians. Ready for questions.
We will start with Melanie Marquis from La Presse.
Merci beaucoup.
Question?
Madame Joly, je voudrais savoir si le Canada est
I don't know whether Canada is
la France, le président
willing
Macron,
to follow France and President Macron.
à œuvrer vers un cessez-le-feu.
They are asking to work towards a ceasefire.
Vous savez, on est tous en faveur qu'un jour il va devoir.
We are all in favor of having a ceasefire one day, and that's what President Macron said. But what France said is that at this point, we are calling for a humanitarian pause because we need to evacuate Canadians, we need to make sure that hostages are released, and we need to ensure that there is more humanitarian aid flowing into Gaza.
Melanie, do you have another question?
Oui, je m'excuse, j'ai été mise en sourdine.
Question?
Est-ce que vous avez un échéancier, Madame Joly, pour
Do you have a timeline?
Pour le
Is there any kind of timeline for that ceasefire?
Nous avons la même position que la France, la même position
Our
que tous les
position is the same of France and all the G7. We're calling for more humanitarian pauses, humanitarian truces, because there are currently more than 200 hostages in the hands of Hamas that must be released. The good news out of the White House is that, in fact, humanitarian pauses will be allowed this weekend to allow for the release of hostages and to assure that more humanitarian aid flows in. So I believe that in this difficult and troubling situation, there is a ray of hope.
We'll go now to Dylan Robertson from the Canadian Press. I don't seem to be able to unmute you at the moment. Hold on one second.
Dylan, it's not my fault.
Okay, there we go. I think.
Hi, Minister. Thanks for taking our questions and for not muting me. I just wanted to ask about Secretary of State Blinken. He mentioned that there are three things that he's seeking from Israel. One is no forced displacement of Palestinians. The second is no reoccupation of Gaza. And the third is no attempt to put Gaza under siege. And I was just wondering, which of these three does Canada support?
Well, of course, we have never been in favor of any forced displacement. So this is abiding with our long-standing position. That would be my first point. And I've always mentioned very clearly that we are in favor of Palestinians' right to self-determination and a two-state solution. So it is in line with our position. The second one, we also believe that Palestinians should have a right to self-determination and should have be able to work with the Palestinian Authority when it comes to Gaza. And so that is why I've had many conversations with Riyad Malki, my counterpart from the Palestinian Authority, which we know that the Palestinian Authority is present in the West Bank, not enough in Gaza. So that's certainly something that we want to be able to press for and work on. And finally, on the question, sorry, could you repeat the last one?
Yeah, thank you. It was no attempt to put Gaza under siege.
Well, that's what two-state solution, making sure that we have we provide access to humanitarian aid in. That is why today at the UN, we are reinforcing our support to UNRWA and voting in favor of UNRWA. And that is why we've increased our funding. So it is actually exactly what we're doing and what we've done concretely since the beginning of this crisis. I must be frank, we were one of the first countries to talk about the protection of civilians in the context of this crisis. When I say one of the first countries, I mean within the G7. We've always mentioned that civilians, may they be Israeli or Palestinians, were equal and deserve to be protected. And that's exactly our position since October 7th.
All right, we're listening to Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister just back from a major meeting with her G7 counterparts.
Okay, we've been listening to Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly. First off, she's saying there is a need for more food, fuel, and water. Only the UN can provide this. Also, she announced that today there will be another evacuation of Canadians from the area. There will be more tomorrow. And for the latest on the Israel-Hamas war, go to our website, cp24.com.